On today's episode of the Bubs and T-Bag Show, venison chili is finally back on the menu.
I'm emotionally erect right now.
T-Bag gives advice on rifle safety for young hunters.
Hold on to your playboys, or in Bubs' case, playgirls.
Bubs vows to only use his bare, ungloved hands as his hunting weapon of choice this season.
In a swimsuit where he has a tuck area.
Right.
Thank you, Target.
All this and peace in the Middle East coming up.
Yes. 1,000 times yes. Good morning, Bubs. Welcome to a morning edition of the Bubs and T-Bag Show. Welcome, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I appreciate the intro. I appreciate the coffee that you purchased.
It's a great cup of Joe. It's a great drip from Mick Cafe, as they call it, or as I knew it when I was a kid, McDonald's. Thanks for listening to the Bubs and T-Bag Show, where we talk old Minnesota, old movies, old memories, and we are...
What about old men?
We are old men, or maybe middle-aged men. We can talk old men.
Well, we're what is it, middle-aged, still thinking we can.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right?
I've noticed, just for myself in the last couple of years, now that I'm in my 40s, I'm not pretending as much anymore. I've now come to grips with the fact that, women in their 20s no longer desire me in any way, shape, or form.
Maybe the ones that do could have some issues you could capitalize on.
Yeah, there's probably some daddy issues out there somewhere, but I'm not one of those guys that's going to exploit somebody else's sort of emotional shortcomings.
What about yourself? Don't you exploit yourself?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
All right.
But you start with yourself and then move on to the ladies.
Self sort of deprecating. That's kind of my cup of tea, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last night when I was at work, there was a couple of girls in their 20s that were having, fun playing darts and stuff like that, drinking beers, enjoying themselves. And they came up and talked to me at one point about something, and I just realized that they were talking to their dad, basically. I mean, it was a very bizarre...
You were an authority figure that they trusted?
I remember sitting there going, like, these girls are just asking me a question, and they want an answer to it, and then they want me to get the hell away from them so they can, continue talking to guys that are cooler than me.
These girls, if you consider it a game... Right, they're in their preseason kind of still. Well, maybe out of high school, so they're in the first part of the season of this game that we're playing, or you're playing.
Sure,
I don't play it anymore, and you're kind of getting towards that. You're not at the 2-minute warning yet, but you're in that fourth quarter and you're down by 14 points.
Yeah, I definitely need to make a move, an aggressive move.
Yeah, I mean, are you going for
maybe
the end zone or
a
at
trick
least
play, maybe or something?
Fake punt,
punch Ruski.
Yeah, some razzle.
Yeah, right.
Do you have to reach deep into the pocket for a little razzle dazzle?
I'm not necessarily worried or anything like that. My intentions were not, hey, I got to talk to these 20-year-old girls. It was more just realizing that,
they're playing a different game.
Yeah, we're not even in the same sort of like league or universe.
Not even league or universe. It's just you're on, maybe to use like science fiction type references, different wavelengths, different time continuums.
We had brought up John Saxon the last episode.
Yes.
Yeah. And I watched Enter the Dragon, which is one of my favorite kind of karate movies.
Well, that's everybody's, if you're
it's the go-to
red-blooded American male in 7th, 8th grade, you like a Bruce Lee, a Kung Fu.
Man, that's a cool movie.
Yeah. Is Lou Alcindor in that one?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Well, yes.
No, there's a guy who somewhat resembles him, though. I can't remember his name exactly, but...
Isn't he sitting in that chair? Big, throne chair?
Was he? What was? I think you're thinking of a different movie, maybe.
What's the other one?
I don't know. It might have been something with Schwarzenegger.
No. This is Bruce Lee.
Was he?
Yeah.
We'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
Look it up on your phone or something like that.
I'll use my device.
Yeah. So Saxon, or as I call him, John. God rest his soul. He passed away a couple years ago. I read a little bit about this guy. He had an interesting life, like a really interesting life. John Saxon was an actor who was pretty popular in the 70s and 80s and a little bit in the 90s, 60s even. I think he started in the 50s. But he was just a guy who, I guess, caught the eye, so to speak, of someone in Hollywood or show business. And they said, hey, you want to come and be an actor? And that's basically how it started. And then he wound up doing karate in real kind of macho movies, often playing a cop or some sort of a fighter, but he had a great role in Enter the Dragon as a sort of karate guy who's a degenerate gambler, and he ends up becoming buddies with Bruce Lee in the movie. He's kind of his sort of sidekick in a way. Really enjoyed the movie, though. It was, I don't know, I can't recommend it enough. The end scene with all those mirrors and stuff where they're fighting, and it's really iconic. I wish John Saxon was still around. I wish that guy was still making movies. After I saw him in Nightmare on Elm Street, he then had a cameo in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, where they revisit, him, and now instead of being a cop, they find him at a bar, drunk, smoking cigarettes, just the classic typical scene where he's in some dimly lit bar, cigarettes and whiskey bottle on his table. And instead of being a cop, he's wearing a uniform with a patch on the shoulder that just says security. So
is it at Sunnyvale Trailer Park?
I don't know where it was. Yeah. No, it wasn't that. It was interesting though, like his fall from grace in the Nightmare on Elm Street series because he didn't believe his daughter about Freddy Krueger.
Well, he saw the dark side.
Yeah.
It affected him.
I enjoyed the movie, though. It was good to watch a movie that wasn't necessarily a horror movie again. I feel like I've been digesting so much horror the last month the last month and a half even.
Yeah.
Because we kind of really got into the swing of things about Halloween.
Well, I ended up starting The Pope's Exorcist, starring Russell Crowe. It's on Netflix. 2023. Set in Italy.
Man, that sounds like a movie that's really, blasphemous.
It is a bit blasphemous, but it wasn't. I watched about the first 15 minutes, then I got tired, but it wasn't bad.
The Pope's Exorcist.
Yeah, so it's The Guy, and it's based on a real priest who did exorcisms from 1986 to 2016. And he was tied in with the Vatican.
Did they say ever how many he might have done?
I didn't do the backstory on it. I'm like, wow, this is based off of a real Italian priest who had the Pope's ear. So, 86, it was Pope John Paul.
Right.
Yeah. And then the German, and now the Marxist.
Yeah. Did Ratzinger replace Pope John Paul II?
Yeah.
He either died very recently or I think he's near death, isn't he?
I'm not entirely sure if he's dead yet.
His
but
name
I think
was
he
Pope Benedict, I believe his name was. Yeah, and he was actually a pope. And then the current anti-pope sort of moved in.
Yeah. Well, can you imagine over, let's say, the millennia of politics that happens within the Vatican? I mean, they had popes and anti-popes and popes on the eastern side and popes on the western side and dual popes happening.
Man, I saw a couple other things in the news recently. Bobby Knight passed away.
Yeah, there's an iconic coach.
Yeah, coach of the Indiana Hoosiers, who was no stranger to throwing tantrums or chairs or even his own players across the court at times.
He would hunt down referees.
Yeah, he was interesting. When I was a kid, man, I remember seeing Coach Knight on TV a lot, and anytime that guy was talking at a press conference or something, it was always a treat to listen to him. I remember probably 20 years ago, I ran into him one time, very, very, very briefly, in downtown Minneapolis outside of a Vikings game.
Is he tall?
Yes, he is. I didn't stand next. I was kind of driving past him very slowly. He was like crossing the street, and my car was right near him and stuff like that. He ended up we made eye contact for a second, and I'm sure he gets this sort of thing all the time. So, he kind of acknowledged the eye contact a little bit. I realized who he was. And I said, "Hey, Coach, how's it going?" And he, "Hey, young man," or said something like that. That was it.
Yeah, it's
but
going good.
The interesting thing is that he was standing next to a guy who's sort of a local Minnesota legend. And this guy that he was standing next to was Sid Hartman. And Sid Hartman was actually just died a couple years ago. He was like 100, famous Minneapolis sports writer and whatnot. He was standing next to Sid, and Sid was famous for saying things along the lines of, "A close personal friend of mine, Coach Bobby Knight," and I was amazed because there he was. He was standing next to Coach Knight. They were obviously going to the game together, so they must have been close personal friends. But the thing that was interesting was that I acknowledged Coach Knight, and I didn't acknowledge Sid. And Sid kind of, I think, was waiting like, "Hey, wait, what about me?" And I just drove away.
Yeah.
But I got a hello from Bobby Knight. There was one other time I met a guy outside that place, very briefly, who had asked a friend. Me and a friend were sitting in a car, and he had come up and asked somebody for a ride, just for like a couple of blocks. He was with another guy, and we ended up saying we were talking to kind of someone else, so we didn't get a chance to really acknowledge him a lot. But it was Barry Sanders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I turned to my buddy after, like about 20 seconds after they had kind of come up. They were like looking for directions, like, you couldn't maybe give us a ride there, you know, and we were in the middle of something, so we didn't really get a chance to say much. But I'm like, dude, we just that was fucking Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
And we just blew him off.
Fuck him.
That was interesting. And I'll say this was probably only about 7 years ago. Sanders looked like the dude could still fucking line up at tailback and carry one in. I mean, that was...
It's kind of interesting how he walked away from the game.
I think the guy probably made his money, had his fun, and knew he didn't want to spend the rest of his, twilight years in a wheelchair. Maybe.
And then, according to the commercials, he got a divorce.
Did he?
Yeah, that there's some Cornell and Cornell or something, some law firm. Where he's
cutting commercials for an attorney firm.
Yeah.
Man, it must have.
The nice thing
the
about
divorce must have wiped him out a little.
Yeah, but Barry Sanders could run the ball, right? Could score, pop a 50-yarder at any time, and then score, and then hand the ball to the ref. Hand the ball to the ref.
Yeah, he never showboated at all. He was great.
Yeah, and just, you know what? He was doing his job. And now you watch some teams down by 21 points, and they score, and they just flip out.
Yeah.
Like they won the Super Bowl.
The whole team will get around and do some touchdown dance now.
Yeah, it's
you ever notice they do like
It's wrestling.
Yeah, it's really bizarre.
And it's drama.
This is a prediction that I got, Bubs. Within the next 5 years, if pro sports continue down the path that sort of society has gone down, they will be fixed. They're all the NBA and the NFL is almost already fixed.
Well, it has to be. I mean, there was some story. I don't know. Did we cover this, or I can't remember who I was talking to, but where Jerry Rice talked about a game he was in where he knew it was fixed.
Back then, I'm guessing if things were fixed, it was probably a little bit of a like. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I think it was somewhat rare or rarer than it is now. I think now it's just big money, and not only that,
big money. There was big money back then. That's who's running the show. Big money.
It was, but back then, fixing a game would have been entirely like.
Well, it's a referee.
Gambling based, yeah. You know what I mean? Like
so right now they're doing it based on a script and a storyline, or
that.
What?
And now that gambling's legal, everybody's got their hand in the fucking cookie jar. You know, back then gambling was still illegal. This is why in the world, in T-Bag's universe, gambling becomes illegal and pot does too. And I like and enjoy both of those substances. They're vices of mine, but I believe they should be illegal.
Why?
Because people who are smart enough and cautious enough can go ahead and enjoy those vices without getting caught. Idiots can get caught, and then we can incarcerate the idiots and keep them out of the gene pool.
I don't know. I'm more of a, I guess, libertarian. I'm a man. Let me do what I want to do.
I was until very recently.
And you know, okay, gambling on sports and the games are fixed. What did I just say? It's a game. It's a game of men playing a game. So, you know, is it entertainment? I guess that's why I'm watching it. I'm entertained.
Nowadays, there's more coverage about Taylor Swift showing up at Travis Kelce's games than there is about the actual game.
I used to go to the Met Stadium out in Bloomington to watch the Vikings outdoors. And this, you know, late 70s, that's when I can recall going. I think my dad had some season tickets for a couple seasons in the 70s.
That must have been pretty cool, though, huh?
He's from the greater Chicagoland area and became a Vikings fan. Probably dual. I mean, our house was dual citizenship, as you could say. Bears to Vikes.
Sounds like Congress with Israel.
Not as heated. But, you know, and I remember going to games in the, you know, it's cold, it's snow, you got a snowsuit on, and you sat there and you watched a game. You watched a game.
Yeah.
And there were people drinking, having a good time, but it wasn't every 4 seconds where you had to stand up because somebody had to get up, or somebody's doing selfies in front of you, or their row is constantly moving.
Yeah.
And if you were a kid, you're sitting there, right? You weren't running around at a football game. Baseball games, on the other hand, when you went to a Twins game in 1979, there was some room to move around, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you could go there on an afternoon and run around the stadium with a couple of buddies and sit wherever the fuck you wanted.
Yeah.
And jump around and have a good time. And then Or you sat with your dad while you did the score. You
Yeah, kept score on paper.
Kept score on paper, and then you would. I remember sitting there with some 1970s white heavy-ass headphones on, transistor radio headphones.
Yeah, listening to
CCO call the game.
I remember seeing a lot of guys do that at Twins games. I never went to a Vikings game until probably around the time that I told the Bobby Knight, Sid Hartman story.
Yeah, we. But to continue on this line, is that when the Metrodome was built, we went to one game in like 1981 or two.
Sure.
My dad and I, and we walk in, and it was really cool to see it because you walk in and you're just like amazed. And then we watched the game, and then they would break for commercials during the game, and then the halftime show was literally for the United Way, and it was people in wheelchairs, like in these giant suits of latex suits that covered their bodies closely, and then they waved ribbons and ran around or were wheeled around.
God. That's where this shit started.
And then he said never again.
Good for him.
And he
Good
never went to another game. He watched it on TV, but never went to another game. And I didn't go to a Vikings game probably until the mid 2000s, early 2000, mid 2005 or something. I don't know, 4. And my wife had never been to a game, so I brought her to one.
And that would have been at the Dome. Have you been to one now that it's been at the new stadium, U.S. Bank?
As an employee, but not as a...
Yeah, sure.
But not as a... I wouldn't pay for that. I wouldn't pay to go in there to do that.
I got to go one time, but I've been to plenty of things there sort of as like a, like you said, employee work and stuff there. I used to work around that area, but man, it's changed, and I don't dig it, and I don't care if somebody wants to call me old. Like I said, we're old men.
I did
talk about old memories, and the memories of back then, I think, are unequivocally and objectively better than what they produce now.
It seemed more oriented towards what was going on the field, not laser lights and music, and you just sat and watched the game. I remember sitting at baseball games, just sitting there watching the game.
Yeah.
Instead of people jumping around, and I worked a lot of baseball games over the years for MLB. And it's just, I sit there in amazement watching people not watch the game. No idea what's going on.
Right. That's what it is now. It's a spectacle. And not only that, I think that normal people like you or your dad back then or me and, my dad now are rapidly being priced out of that sort of experience. It's turning into in another 5 years, it'll be the WWE for rich people.
I think so. And then all these people are wearing jerseys like they're on the team, and what is that? $100 to $200 jersey,
way more, yeah.
And their kids are wearing them, and everybody's got the gear on. Like you're part of the team. You're on it. No, you're not. You're paying these people to be there, to play and entertain you.
I'm dropping out, Bubs, of sort of anything that's popular.
Oh, you're going contrarian?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're no longer going to roll Tide like your shirt says, Alabama?
Well, this is an older T-shirt. I bought this in 2012.
Speaking of a program.
Yeah. Nick Saban, baby. It doesn't get any better than that guy. I bought this shirt in 2012 when I was in Huntsville, Alabama. Anywhere in Alabama, there's Alabama stuff everywhere. I remember.
Come on, Auburn.
Yeah.
I'm an Auburn fan.
Okay. I mean, I guess I don't really have a dog in the race other than
Bo Jackson.
I liked Alabama kind of at the time and decided to pick up this T-shirt. I still wear it occasionally.
We are kind of having a college theme today.
And I picked up a pair of Alabama yoga pants for my girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
And those...
Did it just say Bama?
They were amazing. It said like Alabama, I think, right down the side of the leg or something like that.
Bama, roll Tide.
She was a catch, but like everything in my life...
You're a catch and release?
I take beautiful things and then I sort of, yes.
You catch and released? Got a good photo somewhere?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know what's in my hand until it's long gone.
Yeah, like Barry Sanders.
Right.
Hey, that was Barry Sanders.
Yeah. That was actually my buddy's fault. He was the one that was kind of in the car doing he was at the wheel that time, so I don't take the blame for that one.
Yeah, that happens.
But,
to get back to Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon, John Saxon.
Yeah, so...
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in a movie that didn't get completed, but I remember seeing it, and I think they must have edited it.
Really?
The Game of Death.
Yeah, that was Bruce Lee's like last movie.
Yeah,
or
he
whatever.
died during it or something.
And then, you know what's crazy is his son died in like the early 90s.
The
I
Crow?
remember that was a big deal because I was kind of that age.
The Crow, right?
Yeah, it was called The Crow. His son, Brandon Lee.
Shot himself in the head with a pistol.
Nope. Another guy, like a stuntman, shot him.
Oh.
Basically, what happened was they figured out later.
Alec Baldwin was on the set.
And boy, it's, man,
And
pretty
reminiscent,
close.
right?
What happened was they were blank firing some sort of gunshots or something like that. And at one point, there was a real bullet that had gotten stuck in a blank firing weapon somewhere in the barrel.
Oh, and then they pushed it out.
Right, and it didn't come all the way out, and they didn't know the projectile was in there.
No.
I think what had happened was...
Wasn't he holding it to his head, though, and they were jerking around or screwing around?
I think, no, the projectile got stuck somewhere in the barrel of the gun, and then they went back to blank firing, and those blanks will actually put out a pretty good amount of pressure. So at that point, when they fired the blank, the projectile came out of the gun just probably like it was similar to being a regular gun firing and hit him in the chest and killed him.
Wow.
I remember that was a big deal because when I was in high school, the Crow and sort of goth culture was starting to take hold. And a lot of people in my high school were dressing like they were in the movie The Crow. It was really cool. Like, I mean, it was cool, like in a sense where you remember it now. At the time, those people got made fun of.
Yeah.
They were considered kind of like goth outcasts.
Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah. That's it. They got a couple of good songs, though.
Yeah.
Kiss Them For Me. That's
Sure.
a good one.
Maybe they were big into, what was that? Bela Lugosi's dad.
Yeah.
Can't remember who's that.
Bauhaus? I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's the early goth kind of 80s stuff where that probably came from.
Yeah.
And then it spawned a whole nation of kids who are addicted to SSRIs and cigarettes and probably now vaping.
Well, now they're adults.
Right. But
You
I bet
think they
they're
got the
still, they're
closet
still on all those
goth
pills,
stuff?
man. They're still on all those antidepressants and shit.
Once in a while, they try to fit into their old goth stuff, but they're too fat.
Yeah.
That'd be
Boy,
good South
it's gotta
Park.
be- it's got to be sad. They have a group of those goth kids on South Park. You
Is
ever
there?
seen them?
Maybe.
Yeah. They just sit around smoking cigarettes and calling everyone else a conformist. Whatever, you conformist. That's a funny show, man. I hope that one...
Well, it's survived
stay-
a long
yeah,
time.
I hope it stays good. Anything else in the news these days or what? What else is going on?
Well, apparently bird names are racist, according to an article I saw in the Star and Tribune. I actually got up this morning.
God.
I did the kind of elderly twilight of my life fucking move and got gas before 8 a.m. and then topped off a vehicle and got a paper. And
What time do you intend to go to sleep tonight? 4:30?
well, I'll have the early dinner
Yeah.
and then maybe layer down after the wheel.
Dinner at 3:45 type thing at
Yeah.
Cracker Barrel.
At home, have a grilled cheese and some tomato soup.
Right.
And then lay it down after the wheel.
I got to say, speaking of old people food,
Mm-hmm.
this shit happened to me the other day, and it kind of blew my fucking mind. There's a food store up here. I guess you could call it a grocery. And I've noticed there's a few satellite locations in other parts of the state. I'm not sure if it's regional or national or what, but this place is called Mike's Discount Foods. You're aware of that place?
I am not.
I love it.
So is it got a slight, like, what, burn smell or some smoke smell
So-
because it was in a fire at
Okay,
some other location?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I haven't seen any stuff like that, but occasionally they'll have damaged canned goods.
Yeah. There was a place where I lived in South Minneapolis that had that.
Was it a Steve's Warehouse or
It might have been Steve's.
Yeah, I remember that place
Yeah.
was around a little bit
Yeah.
in that era, but this place may have. It's basically taken the place of that.
Is it like Solo?
Yes, Solo
Okay.
Grocery.
Yeah.
Lowry and Emerson.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very close to that.
Your buddy endorses it.
yeah. Which buddy?
The same guy that endorses everything in Minneapolis late at night.
Fancy Ray.
Fancy Ray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solo Grocery.
Oh.
And Automart and Lickety Split. Lickety Split. That's that like porno bookstore that's a couple blocks north.
I'm unaware of that.
Yeah, you've never been in that one?
No.
You never went in there to buy poppers and underpants?
I would go in there to buy a good card for somebody's birthday.
Yeah.
Or there was another shop
You
on
open it and a
14th
cardboard
and
dick.
LaSalle.
A cardboard dick becomes erect right out of the middle of it or
Yeah.
something. Enough of the fancy Ray and cardboard dick stuff. No, Mike's Discount has taken the place of, whatever it used to be, like Steve's Warehouse or the stuff you remember from that era. But it's a discount grocery store, meaning if you have a plan of, hey, I need to go there and I need to go to the store and get a half a dozen potatoes to make baked potatoes later, and I've got to get a ham roast and some condiments, that's not the place you got to go. Because when you walk into Mike's, you never know what is going to sort of be on the floor that day. It's always changing.
Yeah.
They have a produce section. You can get great deals, but
you have one day.
You have about 2 days to consume that produce before it starts to turn. And it's not to say that it's bad. It's just you got to be on the ball. For someone like me who usually is going, I'm on a health kick now, Bubs. Yesterday, I ate an entire head of broccoli and a chicken breast. I feel like a fucking new man today, a king.
Are you bodybuilding?
I could take on the world, buddy. Yeah, I'm Schwarzenegger back in pumping iron days. I'm
chicken and broccoli.
Couple months away from it. That's it.
Yeah.
So anyways, you can't go in there and purchase, things if you have a list. There's a good chance you're not going to be able to find everything. But what you can find are some really great deals. The other day they had miscut T-bone steaks. Some dude at the, meat cutting factory had set the steak cut thing on the bandsaw too thin, so the T-bones were really thin. I didn't buy any of these, but I'm guessing they were basically like, okay, 1 minute, 90 seconds, maybe tops on each side.
Yeah. Well, those are good minute steaks.
Right.
Get a little bone in there. I know you like the bone.
Yeah.
You don't like the meat. You like the bone.
Yeah, that's what you like. You frickin'
I don't mind the bone.
guy, you gay
You
guy.
you guy who likes the bone.
Fuck you, you fucking guy. So you got to go in there and not necessarily have a plan, but looking for good deals. And that's what I was doing the other day when I was in there.
Is that where you got your broccoli?
Looking for good deals. No, I bought that at a conventional grocery store because I wanted, freshness. But what I did buy the other day was this. They had Yoplait yogurt on sale for a very, very cheap price. I can't remember even what it was, but it was ungodly cheap. When you walk out of Mike's, you're going to have a cart that might be half full. It's a large cart, like a Costco cart. When you pay the bill, you're going to be amazed. You're going to have a cart that looks like you're going to have $300 worth of groceries in it, and the bill is going to be $36.99 or something like that.
You should be the Fancy Ray of Princeton.
I could.
Yeah.
I really could.
You could.
Yeah.
Let T-Bag.
Yeah.
Show you some deals.
My name will be La T-Bag.
La T-Bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't like the meat, just buy the bone.
Yeah. L-E with that little thing on top of the E to make it look distinguished. Is that an Asante
Goo or something?
I'm not really sure what it is.
An accent. Should we call it that?
Yeah, an accent. But it'll make me look kind of hip and with it. So I buy this Yoplait shit. It's in the large format container, not the individual kind of cups.
Quart size.
Yep. And I bought 2 of them, blueberry flavored. And it was something like $1 per quart. I get home, I have something for lunch, and then I say, hey, I'm going to have a little dessert afterwards. It's going to be this new Yoplait that I got for $1. I'm excited. I get in there, and that's when I realize they have specialized like yogurts at a yogurt giant like Yoplait. They must make a few different formats, and this one was clearly the format that they use at like the nursing home where you're ready to, like, you've got a month left to live, and this is one of the last things you can tolerate stomach wise. It didn't have any chunks of fruit in it like normally it would, and that's when I looked at the label. It was called smooth blend version or something like that, and it was specifically for, I mean,
it said hospice on the side.
It's for old people. Yes, yeah. It was, and it tasted off a little bit too.
Sure. Well, mix your own blueberries in there or something.
I ended up getting rid of it, just kind of disgusted with myself for not reading the label properly.
Just excited on the price.
I was completely psyched that I got, a half gallon of yogurt for $2, and at the end of the day, my shopping skills need to be a little more refined, I guess, is basically it. I got hosed on that one, Bubs, but I only lost $2. So
but you could have mixed that with some protein powder, throw, some real blueberries or something in there, and you wouldn't have never noticed.
I felt duped, by the
Steve ripped you off.
Yeah, I bought geriatric yogurt. Mike. Yeah, Mike took me.
It was Steve's brother, Mike.
He took me for a ride.
Yeah, well, that's all right.
Having said that, I still love the store, and I'll probably go there again tomorrow on my day off. I've been working a lot more lately, mainly because I work for a really small business where there's probably only 5 or 6 employees. And one of my fellow coworkers recently just had a baby. Congratulations.
Baby boy, girl?
Girl.
All right.
But I've been picking up more hours here at work, which is why, last night's story of getting talked to by a couple of girls in their 20s who wanted absolutely nothing to do with me other than which way is the bathroom, sir? Where's the change machine? Things like that.
Can you help us change a tire?
That I could probably do.
Yeah.
And that would probably blow them away,
Yeah.
But
Would you say time me?
Time me.
Time me.
That movie is going to be on soon, Bubs. Now that Halloween's done.
Well, it's Christmas
It will
now,
be
isn't
on
it?
ad nauseum. That movie, A Christmas Story, will be on. That week leading up to Christmas, it's on like 24/7.
Yeah.
I can't tolerate it anymore.
Yeah, I don't think I watch it every year, but I have watched it multiple times, obviously.
The crazy thing is my parents, it's like they can watch it on repeat. I don't know what the deal is. They love it.
Well, I think
It's like me with Jaws.
the guy that wrote the story was Gene Shepard, and then he narrates it.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
The kid who plays Ralph, the young guy, I think he's involved in like producing and stuff like that nowadays in Hollywood.
Yeah, it was a very funny movie. I think I was probably 11 or something when it came out. It was a good movie.
Did you ever see the movie Made with Vince Vaughn and John Favreau? Came out around 2001. It's kind of like Swingers, except a little bit different.
Yeah. They're kind of loosely in with some organized crime, but then they're trying with Hollywood stuff. Is that right?
They go to like pick up some money somewhere in New York City. And
what's the second guy's name? You see him everywhere, but he's the director, writer, probably.
There's Vince Vaughn and then John Favreau is the other guy. Favreau's like
he's very talented.
Yeah, he's like a big Hollywood producer, director guy now. He makes like a lot of Star Wars stuff. And
Does he really?
He's got to be insanely rich. Yeah, he made that show called The Mandalorian on Disney.
Never watched it.
Came out a couple years ago, and I got to say, as a fan of older Star Wars, I loved the first season. I watched, the first couple episodes. I watched the first season. And then I watched a little bit of the second season and had, still very good, had a moment where they reintroduced actually Luke Skywalker, which is a CGI version of Mark Hamill, but it's so well made that you don't even notice it. And then it's got Hamill's voice.
Uh-huh.
That to me was really great. Season 3, holy shit, did it jump off a cliff quality-wise. I basically feel like Eric Cartman with Disney right now, where, I feel like they're basically just shitting in my ear and eyes and other sensory organs. It's a shame, but I saw a great analogy for what happened with this stuff the other day, and it's not mine, but I'll repeat it here. I don't really know who to credit to. It's some dude on the internet who had his shit together, but this is what's happening right now with all of your favorite TV shows and pieces of legacy media from back in the day that you used to enjoy. Here it is. I'm going to go off on a little moment.
Okay, well, hold on. T-Bag, rant.
Yeah.
T-Bag, rant. T-Bag, rant.
Here's what happened. Say you're a fan of Star Wars. Say you're a fan of Indiana Jones. You're a fan of some piece of old media that existed in the 80s or the 70s or the 90s or whatever. Well, the people who made that are no longer gatekeeping that piece of media. They no longer have control over it. Some massive conglomerate like Disney does. And because a company like Disney is much better than you morally and ethically, just ask them. They are. Don't question it. Just if you want to, you can ask them. They're better than you. And because of that, because they're better than you, they've hired people that are some of the best people in the world. And these are those ones that I just told you about with the fudge fingers and the gender studies degree and things like that. Those women now who are extremely confused have decided that they're going to take the reins of your favorite piece of intellectual property. Let's take Star Wars, for example. They now have the reins to write and produce whatever they want and then put it out to the masses on a large streaming service like Disney+. What have they decided to do? Here's what they've decided to do. They've decided to do the equivalent of, let's say you're back to being 8 years old, 9 years old. You've got your G.I. Joe guys out or your Transformers and you're playing with them. You're having a great battle. You're setting things up. You're enjoying yourself. Your sister decides one day to come in to your room, take your Transformers or your G.I. Joes. She brings them into her room, and she puts little dresses on them. And then she makes them have a fucking tea party. And then she gets your attention and says, come in here. You got to see this. You got to see this. Look what I did. and she shows you all your G.I. Joe guys and your Transformers having a tea party with each other. And then they're wearing dresses, and then they start kissing. That's what's happening to your favorite pieces of old media. They're taking your Transformers and your G.I. Joes, and they're dressing them up in little dresses and putting lipstick on them and making them kiss. And it's making people mad. Well, the key is to just realize that you've got to rise above this sort of bullshit right now. It won't last forever. Even if they destroy Transformers and make them wear dresses and lipstick and kiss, and take your G.I. Joe guys and make them have a tea party every day, never forget how fun it was back then for you, and then realize that at some point we'll create a new sort of Transformers or G.I. Joe guys, and then, we won't let crazy people pollute it again. I'm done, Bubs.
T-Bag rant over. T-Bag rant over.
Yes, thank you.
Well,
that's my opinion, though, on what's happened.
Yeah, well, it ties into the article I was talking about with the Star and Tribune. It was written by a guy named Daryl Fears.
Yeah.
He likes to dress up as G.I. Joe in a dress, maybe. How's that?
That's stunning and brave.
Yes, he is stunning and brave.
What's he got to say today?
Here's the title.
It's in the Star Tribune. It must be very, very newsworthy.
It's almost like what all these other shows do, Babylon Bee or Real.
Yeah, right.
Dozens of bird names linked to slavery, racist, to be changed.
Thank God.
Yeah, after 2 years of discussion and debate, the nation's premier birding organization has decided that birds should not have human names.
What is that, the Audubon Society or something?
No, that's what I thought, but it's the American Ornithological Society announced Wednesday that it will remove names given to North American birds in honor of people and replace them with monikers that better describe their plumage.
Oh, great.
And other characteristics.
Well, hey, thank God for Daryl for doing the deep dive here on what really, really hard-hitting news stories we need to see.
Well, the group said it will prioritize birds whose names trace to enslavers, white supremacists, and robbers of indigenous graves.
Interesting.
Because there's power in a name.
Yeah. Well, all I got to say to, people like that is keep pushing it. There will definitely never be a pushback. And go right ahead and continue calling anyone white a white supremacist. Continue changing names. Continue destroying monuments. Continue telling people that they're responsible for all the evils in the world. It will never, ever, ever come back, and there will never be a consequence for it. And that's the good thing. In case you can't tell, Bubs, I'm being extremely sarcastic right here.
I feel it.
Yeah.
It's thick in the air.
Thank you.
I can cut it.
5 years ago, I would have gotten angry reading an article like that. Now I want them to continue. I want them to. I'm an accelerationist at this point. Step on the gas, accelerate. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it says at least 2 chapters of the National Audubon Society, so they're mentioned, voted to change their names and distance themselves from the enslaver who detested abolitionists. So was that Audubon? Was he an abolitionist or not an enslaver?
Dude, who knows with these fucking people? Like, the whole article, Bubs, is fake. Remember that whoever's writing that, Daryl.
How about blackbirders? That's in here. Blackbirders who trace the Bachman sparrow and Bachman's warbler to the man who they immortalized John Bachman. Might find the passage in one of his speech. Well, whatever. Yeah, right. Blah, blah, blah.
That isn't even a news story. What that is right there is a distraction.
What it is propaganda and programming.
Right. That's put out by someone who...
Well, I don't want any racist birds flying around my house.
Oh, dear. The good thing is that the only people that still read that thing are like in their 70s. You know what I mean? That's who they are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the only reason that they're still reading it is because they've been conditioned over the years to trust that newspaper. The thing I hate about modern sort of progressivism and woke bullshit is that it walks around in a skin suit of things that you used to know and like. Like, for example, the Star Tribune. Some dude at some point decided to murder the Star Tribune and then put on its clothes and walk around saying, here it is, it's the Star Tribune. What are you talking about?
A skinwalker.
Yeah, it is. It's literally a skinwalker.
Yeah.
Or
it's a facade of what it used to be.
Or they'll take the NFL and say, here it is, guys. We're still here. We're bigger than ever. We're better than ever. We're masculine, baby. Oh, by the way, Have you tried drinking a Bud Light today and, maybe touching another man who's nude?
In a swimsuit where he has a tuck area?
Right.
Thank you, Target.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's nothing but sick, demented, gross
Demonic.
people. Yeah, you could say demonic. At this point, it's getting down to the, good and evil. Good versus evil, et cetera, et cetera. But they've taken things that you once loved or trusted, murdered it, and then put on that person or thing's clothes and then continued walking around saying, hey, it's the same thing. What are you talking about?
Isn't it funny how it's at every turn, though, in modern society? If you choose, like you said, you may drop out of popular culture.
I am, but yes.
Okay, so you drop out, and it's still there. It's still going on. And eventually, hopefully, I mean, it's got to be economic. How eventually, let's hope, well, let's not hope, but something economically tragic happens where the whole fucking system falls apart or it's terrible for 5 years. This stuff's just going to go away.
Yeah.
Because you got to have soup and bread and, pay your rent and pay your mortgages, and all that stuff's going to go away. All the streaming, all the ESG, all that shit will go away.
That's why we've said time and again on a few different episodes here, hold on to your physical media, folks. Hold on to your DVDs. Hold on to your VHS if you still have a VCR or laser disc. Hold on to your Playboys, or in Bubs' case, Playgirls.
Some solid watch articles in there.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to see my wristwatch? Isn't that an old fucking trick?
My wristwatch. Hold on to those things because you're going to need them, okay? And they're going to be valuable. Also, hold on to ammunition and alcohol. Those things are going to be like currency. You heard it here first, okay? Prediction time. You got any predictions? For, I don't know, just what's going to happen, like, between now and the next presidential sort of facade of an election. The election process is also wearing a skin suit these days.
Well, right now today in the Minnesota Supreme Court, they're hearing arguments about whether Trump can be allowed on the ballot in Minnesota because he's an insurrectionist, and if he's charged with insurrection or if he'll be convicted of it, can they put him on there or not?
That most likely, I think, is what's going to happen. We've said that.
Which is silly for this state because he's not going to win the state.
No, there's enough ballot harvesting in this state to where they would never have to even worry about that to begin with.
And then on the same point, what I like right now, here's a prediction, I guess, is that within the Democratic Party and its factions within that party are united against Trump, united with all this bullshit, and people are putting up with all the bullshit that they ram down people's throats. Right now, the situation, the war, the invasion that happened in Israel is... They don't know what to do. They're spinning out of control because you have one faction saying, yay, we like Hamas and Israel should be gone from river to sea. Then you have another faction of the Democratic Party saying, no, we're Jewish and we like Israel and we support Israel and we're old school and we support Israel because we know we need some check and balance in that region. And I think, that's going to unravel a little bit and you're going to see some camps separate. But at the end,
they already are.
They already are right now because it's very emotional. But come September next year, October, they're all going to rally unless that thing just becomes a powder keg.
I think it might pop off, and maybe even by design. But it's interesting you brought that up. I was thinking about this the other day too, and I kind of came to this conclusion. This is the first time I can remember seeing something where the progressive left, woke left, whatever you want to call them, fringe left,
Marxists.
Yeah. The commies, as I just call them commies now.
I can't.
I throw them right into a fucking barrel. Like, the trash barrel?
Yeah.
I've got a sort of metaphorical trash barrel.
Of communists, Marxists.
Yep. It's just like an old tin can that Oscar the Grouch would live in. And right on the outside, I've spray painted commies into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just throw everything in there. And there's all kinds of things in there that I don't want. Not only are there, sort of commies in their ideology in there, but there's old rotten food in there and things like that. Old underpants that I've soiled on accident after a long night of drinking.
Shit.
Like old Totino's pizza rolls that I left out and things like that. There's old French fries that I dropped in my, on the floor of my truck, McDonald's French fries.
Old worn out stories, because Marxism is an old worn out story that does not succeed.
Right. But they'll tell you by the time that everyone's starved and you've lost 20 million people that the reason that happened is because we didn't do communism right. And we need to try again.
Well, they're better at it.
Yeah.
The current ones are better at it.
Yep. They're always better. We need to try again.
And, Marxism, LBGT for Marxists. right?
Yeah, that's basically that's their religion.
Yeah.
That's their new thing is latching onto that as a religion.
And LBGT for Hamas.
That's funny, isn't it?
How? Go over there.
I know.
Can you land off a 4-story building?
I know.
Maybe Israel doesn't have it. They don't have any left over there.
Yeah,
but
they don't. Yeah,
But
tallest building in Gaza.
then they'll
right
just
now
rain
is
bricks down on you,
12 feet.
right? I mean, is homosexuality in Arab world popular? It happens.
Yeah, I'm sure it does behind very, very many closed doors.
Yes, I mean it's a long walk, and you're lost by the time you get through that building
Yeah.
to get to your lover.
Yeah, you got to do it under cover of darkness.
That was metaphoric and literal, wasn't it?
Quite so.
Yeah.
Touche there, sir.
Yes.
Hats off to you. The one thing I was kind of like trying to focus on was this is the first time I can remember since I've been paying attention, which is probably goes back for at least 10 or 15 years now, but this is the first time I can remember seeing a wedge that's been inserted in between the progressive left, which up until this moment has been very, very unified. I've got to hand it to them. They've been unified in what they stand for, which is basically anti-whiteness. If you're white, they don't like that.
Well,
they don't like you.
Yeah,
and a lot of these people are white themselves, but that's one thing they dislike. They dislike things like that. They dislike things that white people helped create or sustain or
Well, they use that as a leverage
become
point.
great.
Whether they believe it or not, it's their PowerPoint, their leverage
Right.
to change, make hope
Yeah.
change.
So they take these things over and put on a skin suit and things like that. But this is now the first time where I've seen something inserted into
Pretty
their
dramatic.
ideology that has divided them and divided them overnight.
Yeah.
They've split.
Yeah.
And it's, do I side with Palestine or Hamas? Some of them are blatantly just saying I support Hamas. A lot of them, the ones that aren't, they realize that might be a touchy thing to say. They just say I support Palestine. Well, then the other ones are saying I support Israel. And they have no idea which side to go on at this point, and it's beautiful. And it's got to be the people from some money from the right is pushing this very, very big time right now. And case in point is that one dude who's running for Minneapolis City Council, Zach Metzger.
Yeah, he's the one that keeps crashing all these things.
Oh,
and it was-
dude, that guy is paid opposition 1,000%. You know what I mean? Like,
What would it take you to do it?
I'd probably do it for free. Just
Well, just to be an insurgent
yeah,
inside
just
the program.
to have a good time and
Well,
laugh
it'd be nice
at
to
it.
be able to cover rent.
Right.
What the Marxist progressive factions of the Democratic Party lack is principles. Sure, they have Marxist principles, but those Marxist principles are inherent in domination and being evil, right? The great
Yeah,
evil.
keeping people down. and-
Yeah, so they're unprincipled. So they can't look at what happened at one side and say, well, that was bad. That was wrong. It's wrong. What Hamas did was wrong. Okay?
Sure.
Right? They invaded a sovereign nation and just started killing hundreds or thousands of people or whatever. They killed 1,000. They can't argue because they're unprincipled.
Yeah, I agree.
In the greater scheme of life, we know that water is wet, fire will burn. These are principles that you cannot change, but they try to change it by putting on a skin and owning it, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot change it. In the end, it surfaces. The true principles of life happen.
I heard an interesting thing. I believe Elon Musk said it recently. He said that the reason that those people have to continue lying is because none of their sort of positions will ever hold up under actual scrutiny.
Like I just said, the
Right.
true principles of life will rise up. It'll
Right.
just, like a rock in the field, it'll just surface.
I agree. Back to my prediction that this whole thing is being done on purpose. And I think
Well, you'll never prove that.
well, I mean, if it's enough to destabilize the United States presidential election in another year, I think that, at that point, you don't really have to prove it. You only have to connect the
What the
dots.
United States loves is instability throughout the world.
They've done a great job of it in that region over the last 50 years.
Yeah, but they like it anywhere. Wherever there's instability, whether it's in Europe twice, right?
They don't like it on their own, within their own borders, and
Well-
that's what we're seeing right now.
Well, we've dealt with it in the past.
Yeah, this one's going to be interesting. I mean, there are millions of people literally that
I think there's millions and millions and millions that don't give a flying fuck unless they got their TV, their phone, and their fucking whatever meal.
most of them, I bet 80% of people
Don't
if,
give a
if,
flying
if
fuck.
I lined up 10 people that I know personally, 8 of them which I guess is what, a quarter? No,
10?
three quarters.
We need the mathlete here.
Yeah, I know. Fuck. We got to get her sitting down soon.
Isn't that 80%?
Yeah. Either way, if I line up 10 people I know, 8 of them are going to say, fuck you, let me watch the fucking
Bachelor.
Let me watch South Park or Big Brother or The Golden Girls or whatever the hell their poison is. In your case, it's The Golden Girls. You were a big B. Arthur fan. I know that.
That was a Rue. What was her name? McClanahan?
Rue McClanahan.
Yeah.
She was sort of the slutty one, I believe, on the show, right?
Sexy mama.
Okay, at the end of the day, guys, we're not going to start a holy war here in the studio at the Bubs and T-Bag show, but we've laid out a few little items there. We're not going to really touch too much more probably on the Middle East or Israel or Palestine or Jews or Arabs or whatever it is that is getting people so up in arms right now. In my opinion, take care of yourself, take care of your neighbor, take care of your family, and you'll probably be okay.
And guess what that is? That's fellowship. That's truly reaching out. You take care of your family, take care of your neighbor, take care of extended family, take care of that old guy down the street or that old lady. And then that's true citizenship, right? And whether the political winds go this way or that way, you look in Europe during the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s, it was people in those countries of Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Poland, let's use these examples, that took care of their church, took care of their people, took care of their neighbors, took care of their family, had a parallel commerce going, and eventually they were freed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if we have hard times, well, I'm 53. I had a fucking good life. And whatever it takes, if it's, 8 years from now and it sucks and life is desolate and I got an infection and I'm going to die in the cold, well, fuck it.
I intend to fight it out for as long as I can, Bubs. I
Well,
don't know
yeah.
what that really means, but I don't know, man. I guess I'm going to be ready to take a swing when, the ball is over the plate type thing.
Well, we talked about it an episode ago. You just want to press that trigger without disrupting your sight picture.
That's true. Yep. The instructor laid some really, really good fundamentals on us that day.
Yeah.
I miss that guy. I hope we can have him on
Oh,
again.
he'll be back. He'll bring tribute too.
Yeah.
Meat products.
I had some of those meat products. Have you yet?
No, I have not. I'm saving some of them for, I'm headed up to deer camp
Oh,
tomorrow.
yeah.
So we'll have to touch on that.
Yeah, we will. Just so I know the instructor's listening right now. I haven't had the corned beef yet. Going to very soon. Going to probably make a sandwich out of it tomorrow on my day off. But I did have some of those beef sticks. Mine were the mango habanero.
Yeah.
And I took a few regular Triscuits, one of my favorite crackers. They're really good. They taste good. They're medium salty, but they got a lot of fiber, so they really get you moving the next day, if you know what I mean. And I took Triscuits, some cheddar cheese from Ireland that I had gotten for a steal at Mike's, and those mango habanero little meat sticks. And,
Which kind of cheese and who made it?
It was like an aged cheddar.
Yeah, but who made it? Right? What team are we on?
Well, I think it was the Irish people. It said it
what
came
team
from Ireland.
within Ireland?
Oh,
yeah. Come on, keep up, freedom fighter.
Is it the IRA or is it the Catholics or yeah? I'm not really sure.
Ulsters or
I know, Bubs, that you have a very, very strong opinion on that. You're sort of sympathetic, I guess, let's say, to the cause.
Yeah. Hell yeah. One
Whereas,
man's freedom fighter, right, is another man's terrorist.
I don't insert myself into the sort of territorial disputes and religious disputes of people who eat potatoes for a living, I guess. You know what I mean?
I'm taking an affront to you.
Grow rocks.
Right now.
Yeah, they're rock field.
Really? Sound like walls.
Drink themselves
Sound
to
like
death
walls.
in their 40s.
Talking about Minnesota. It's just all rocks and cows out there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. You must be getting set for Saturday a.m., sunrise, basically. An hour before sunrise, I believe, is the
half
rules.
hour.
Is it a half hour?
Yeah.
You excited?
Yeah. I'm emotionally erect right now. I can't
what-
even contain myself.
Describe for our listeners what excites you so much and why.
Well, being outdoors.
I mean, well, first off,
what are we talking about?
what's
Deer
happening?
hunting.
Yeah,
The
deer
Minnesota deer hunting opener, where roughly 400,000+ hunters go into the woods or farm fields in the state of Minnesota. State's divided into zones where you can hunt. I hunt way up north by the Iron Range near Hibbing. The prep for this hunt started probably in August, maybe end of July.
Yeah, you get real serious with this stuff.
Yeah, and you got to. Well, to be successful and to make things move smoothly, yes. Huge deal, huge tradition, multi-generational traditions, I guess, are passed down. I didn't grow up deer hunting. I started deer hunting with some friends and would go up to their property with their family, and that's how I got introduced to it. Always enjoyed it. The thrill of it, being out there, and then when you actually see something come through the woods, a deer, whether you can shoot it or not, is very exciting for me.
Right.
Gets the adrenaline going, and you get excited and get a little buck fever. It's actually a buck or something you can shoot. And then deer camp itself is always raucous or entertaining. At least ours have been.
The fellowship amongst the men.
Yeah, the men and the boys. And what I enjoyed about it, having 3 boys, is that they each started at about age 10. They wouldn't go up the opening weekend, but they would follow suit the next weekend.
Sure.
At a younger age, and then you could get to spend time with them. And they could come up undistracted, and the rules were pretty simple. Eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired, and don't point that fucking gun at me.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's good.
And that's pretty simple. And I don't, you want to wander off into the woods, well, have a compass and come back.
Yeah. We'll see you back at the campsite a little later here.
But other things that happen, too, is that you can grouse hunt. You can small game hunt in the area that I'm at. And the grouse season, or the grouse population's up this year. And I have traditionally deer hunted with a buddy that I grew up with, and then his 2 sons have been able to be a part of deer camp. And then another buddy that I've mentioned over the years, Big Cat, he's one of the OGs, original gangsters for deer hunting in my camp.
And he is not afraid to get down and dirty with that animal if he needs to be. If he needs to low crawl or even, field dress the deer and get all kinds of...
What I can say is that when he popped his cherry, I was there. And I wasn't sitting with him, but I had dropped him off, and this was pretty early on in the property that I owned.
Dropped him off like at his deer stand type
We didn't even have a stand for him. We had 2 deer stands on the property at the time and maybe 1 portable. And then I took him out to an area with a stool and put him out next to with his back to a tree. And I walked... 15 minutes to my deer stand, sat down, the sun's coming up, and all of a sudden his 300 Winchester mag, because Big Cat has to go big.
Or go home. Yeah.
Or go home, and that motherfucker went off like an artillery piece.
I bet.
And I was a little nervous because he had not deer hunted, and I was wondering if he shot the ground or shot a tree or shot his foot, but I didn't hear any screaming, and I sat and waited. And then, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, I heard another gunshot, and I said, fuck it, I got to... And then I didn't get down. He's an adult. Let him figure it out. And 2 hours later, he showed up, and it was one of those opening mornings that ended up being like 46 degrees by 11. So it's hot.
Right.
It's warm, and it was sunny. And I think I'd already kind of like stripped down like my big coat, and I'd been sitting out there since sunup. And all of a sudden he shows up, and he's whispering to me as he, tramps through the woods towards me. And I go, you don't have to whisper. You're standing below my deer stand.
You've made a sufficient amount of noise.
Yeah. And he goes, I got one, and it has horns. I'm like, well, that's fucking outstanding, dude. Where is it? Oh, I need some help. And I go, what's wrong with your face? And his eyes were almost swollen shut. He had hives all up and down his neck. And he had all his gear on, all his heavy gear. And I'm like, take that. Let's get you back to camp. We'll, change shirts, do all this shit, get you figured out, and tell me your story.
And then we'll go find the deer.
Yeah, so he tells me the story. He goes, yeah, no shit. I'm sitting there. He goes, 10, 15 minutes after you left, this 6-pointer comes right 30 yards in front of me, broadside. I'm sitting on a stool, that I put him in. And he looked at it, and he said I couldn't even tell where I was hitting because it was so close through the scope, and he just pulled the trigger, right? So that's a 300 Winchester mag. That's a big round. That's a big game animal.
That's going fast. It'll drop it.
It did. It ran about 15 yards and fell over, or 20 yards and fell over.
So you hit it right in a sweet spot in the vitals, or what?
Yeah, well, that energy on impact at 20, 30 yards is dramatic, and it put that animal out of its misery quickly, right? It died quickly. It was a clean kill. Well, apparently it wasn't, and he sees it through his scope and decides, I'm going to low crawl towards it, which is a technique, but not one that's fully advised, I guess. I guess you could stay low.
He was going to stalk his prey, make sure,
But it was down, and I had briefed him ahead of time. We had multiple talks, and I said, if you shoot something, wait 20 minutes, wait a half hour, let it bleed, and it'll pass away, and then you can go recover your game. And he immediately stood up, and the thing bolted right away from its 20-yard lay, and then he saw it bed down another 50 yards away, and he low crawled to it. His military training must have kicked in.
His training kicked in.
Yeah,
sure.
and whatever, and then he got into a prone, or stayed in a prone position and shot it again while it was on the ground. He said he could see the steam coming out of the first wound. All right, that fucker's dead, right?
Yeah.
So he's telling me this story as we go back, get him cleaned up, have him wash his face, change clothes, get into some lighter gear. We're going to have to drag this deer in. And I go, what, did you gut it? And he goes, kinda. Oh.
So did he just have like an allergic reaction or something to
Well,
something that he
yeah, what we
rubbed on,
found
or what?
out is that if he touches deer, he hives up. So
No shit.
he's one of these people that's allergic to deer. Like, I'm allergic to cats, he's allergic to deer.
Right.
I suppose it's the dander, not the fur
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Anyway, we go back and we find the deer. Beautiful deer, nice antlers, big body, and it's got a couple holes in it.
Yeah.
And it looked like maybe Dahmer or Ed Gein's first kill, where they were experimenting on an animal first.
Using a
knife.
like a butter knife.
I don't know, but it wasn't clean.
A piece of broken glass.
Yeah. And eventually it's just like, it's an opportunity to help or educate somebody, and I did. And showed him how to gut it, and we went through the process, and we dragged it in, and then he hived up again. And I said, all right, you cannot touch that deer. And then I, over the years, he's come back and he's shot deer. He's shot 2 deer at a time when you could take multiple ones. When he's living out east, he got into deer hunting out there and had a property of like 700 acres that he had access to. And he's shot more deer than I have.
Yes, he's had success out there too,
yeah,
huh?
Very
good for him.
And then I went out and deer hunted with him. He shot a doe, and I think in about 8 minutes he had that thing gutted and in a truck.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
so
he's
he knows
dialed
he
in.
knows
Yeah.
what he's doing.
He's the guy now. So kind of like Grasshopper is now the teacher.
Yeah, really.
So now the student is the teacher.
Good for him, man.
Yeah,
He knows more than me.
and every year, everybody at deer camp wants him there.
Okay,
Yeah, because he's a character.
he is.
Yeah, and he shoots deer. The last time he was here 2 years ago, he shot a deer.
Yeah.
He ain't no stranger. And then he was smart enough to get some of the young bucks in camp to help him drag it in. And
Good man.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good man. Yeah, he is a character. I miss that guy. I've had some good times with him.
yeah. But I think almost everybody has shot a deer on the property. There's a couple of kids that, they're now in their 20s that have not, and that's fine. Some people have taken pokes at him and missed or whatever. But I have one son that you can't let him anywhere. He's got the horseshoe up his ass, and the deer are always coming
No
by
kidding,
him.
huh?
Yeah. I may have to put him, banish him in some other part of
Yeah.
the property.
Put him, over near the neighbor's parcel or something.
Well, that's
like
when the
that.
monarch giant buck comes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I personally, I haven't been out this year with bow and arrow. The last 3 years I was out a couple times, but for the most part, I think I've mentioned this before. I am really not out there thinking I'm going to probably be taking a deer that day. It's more just here. I'm out in the woods and kind of out here for some enjoyment. I've gotten, somewhat close to a few of the animals. Not necessarily where I was within range or comfortable range for myself for a shot, which for me would probably be 40 yards, maybe 30 yards or in.
Yeah.
Some brush in the way and things like that. But I had a great time, nonetheless out there. I remember the first time I went deer hunting, I think I was probably like 14. My grandpa had a little bit of experience, so, he took me out at least once. There might have been a second
Do
time.
you remember where you went?
Yeah, it was up near Garrison.
Oh, all right. Mille Lacs.
Yep. And we didn't see anything in terms of deer. He ended up shooting a porcupine, which I thought was pretty cool with a 308. That was interesting. I didn't get to, I wasn't next to him when it happened, but I heard a gunshot and kind of eventually went over there, and there's a big-ass dead porcupine. A few years later, once I got a little older and had access to a car and things like that, I started deer hunting with my buddy, who actually gave us this beer sign, my buddy Larry, as we call him. Great guy. And I remember a couple of stories from are times when we were hunting in our early 20s. One being, at the time, I lived up in Alexandria, Minnesota. I didn't live on any land or anything like that, but I was going to school up there. There was a lot of public land available up there that looked like it was probably somewhat desirable for hunting. So I told him, hey, why don't you come up here to my place over the weekend and we'll go deer hunting. Don't worry, I got a couple stands set up. And when I say stand, I mean, yeah, I guess it was a deer stand. It was probably two 2x6s, nailed to in between the larger branches of a tree. And I was probably 40 feet up in the air.
Yeah.
Way too high.
It's not as bad going up, but going down, it's scary as fuck.
And I remember, looking back on it, I bet it was very fly by night. But I remember the first day we were out, got in the stand, waiting. It's still dark. It's finally just getting a little bit light. And from like right under my stand, a fucking gun goes off. I knew my buddy was at least 50 yards, maybe even more away. There was a guy right under my stand sitting in a brush blind or something like that.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
You think if he was there first, he would have whistled at you or something?
I don't know, but I thought I would have heard him. And these guys it was like two younger guys.
Yeah.
This guy ended up shooting like a nice 6-point buck with a shotgun. This was a shotgun only zone at the time.
Meaning slugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I got out of the tree eventually. My buddy Larry got out of the tree, and we kind of went up and looked at this deer with this guy, and they were nice people. It wasn't like anything confrontational, and we didn't really know what we were doing anyways. So, by that time, it's like, well, there's been enough noise and shit here. So, we probably were in the back home by noon that day or something.
Yeah.
We went a couple other, we might have gone, another day or two and didn't get anything. But I just remember the stands that I had built were very substandard. It was like a kid's tree fort. Thank God Larry was at least sympathetic enough to my plight and realized that I didn't know what I was doing either. But we got a little better at it. A couple years later, we were going up to his place at the time. He or his folks or somebody had some property up near Longville. We went up there. He ended up getting one morning. Or no, this was an afternoon deer, like getting close to dusk type thing. And he shot a doe with a rifle. Pretty cool, hit it right in a sweet spot. We went and dressed it out. And at that time, there wasn't any YouTube videos. But we had bought some videos of like VHS tapes of guys who were like deer hunting and showing you how to do it.
Yeah. I might muzzleload this year.
You ever tried it before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
you
want some solitariness.
Yeah. Have you shot one with a muzzle loader?
I had the one that got away.
No shit.
Yeah,
huh?
the big one.
Oh, that's right. You said that. Yeah,
it was from me to you.
Right on top of you, basically.
Yeah. And I was standing there. I became a spectator. I had a ticket, and I was not in the game.
Do you have optics on the muzzle loader?
No.
Iron sights, huh?
Yeah.
The way it's supposed to be?
Well, I'm just lazy, I guess.
They started letting people use optics on those things like within the last 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
so I know at
now
100, at 100 yards, mine's dead on.
Yeah.
So,
I bet you could shoot some of these things at 200 or more now.
Maybe with a holdover, but it's a 50 caliber slug going down there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's some drop, I'm sure.
Yeah. But it's just muzzle loader, you move around a little more. It's first weekend maybe like after Thanksgiving into December, and the deer change what they're doing, and then supposedly there's like a second minor rut to some of those does that didn't get bred out, so then the deer are moving some more. But yeah, it's endless stories with deer camp and a good time and fellowship and craziness. And I look back over from the mid 80s all the way through the 90s, and some years you mess and you have kids and you don't go that year, but a lot of whiskey flows, beers. I think the beer of choice now in camp for the last 6-7 years are Blue Yummies. So some Bush lattes. That seems to be the one that everybody gravitates towards. Then I usually have a handle of Jim Beam. That's just camp whiskey.
Sure.
For anybody that feels like getting loose.
Do you guys ever drink any products that aren't endorsed by the communist cabal that is Anheuser-Busch?
Don't care.
Yeah, you don't, do you?
No, I don't care.
I suppose when you're.
I have
When you have dual citizenship between the United States and Israel, I guess I
what
would
I
feel the same way.
yeah, a lot of deer hunters in Israel. They're hunting something else right now. But I have done the what I've done too is I'll pick up a 30-pack of hams because that'll be $14 right now this weekend.
Yep.
So that's economically it makes sense.
Why don't you grab an old Milwaukee this time instead? Maybe
I might.
Yeah, those are.
I don't
good.
know.
Those are real.
I
Good.
went to a Halloween party on Saturday and I had some tall boy old styles because I was it was an 80s party.
Yeah, those are good too.
So I went old style.
I believe those are all under the same sort of conglomerate. I think it's Stroh's that does it
Is
now
it
or
now?
something. Yeah.
Heilemans at the
Yeah.
time, but whatever.
Or
Anyway,
actually, maybe I think actually Old Style is still maybe the same one, but Old Milwaukee and those
Yeah.
other ones I think are under the Stroh's banner.
you want to hear one funny deer story that has nothing to do with deer?
Yeah.
So back in the 90s, I would go with a group of guys. It would range from 6 to 8, maybe 9 dudes. And we would hump across a lake with a boat, maybe a couple small boats, and then set up a camp along a kind of a narrow in between two lakes in the Chippewa.
Okay.
And then other times we would park on a log road and then have a modular camp set up that we would kind of pre-build and then set it up. And then prior to that, we'd go up and build deer stands out of actual like trees, and then flooring, maybe one railing and then some steps going up. And a lot of them were kind of sketchy. And then some of them had, we'd bring up and set up portables and just stash them away in the woods. But I was out in a deer stand that we had built or a portable, I can't remember, but we had, this is guys in their mid-20s doing it all themselves. There's nobody of any authority with us or influence. I think the oldest guy was probably 25 and we were
Just
all
a bunch
23.
bunch of meatheads.
Yeah, but we're all out there somehow doing it all ourselves. And I was hungover, feel like shit. Got out there, sitting, minding my own business, and I had a buddy that I'm watching him, and I'm in orange, and he doesn't see me, and he's probably 100 yards away, and he keeps walking in, and I'm kind of thinking, where the fuck is he gonna go? Because I think I was at the last stand or something, I don't know. But he comes walking in, maybe gets about 50 yards from me, and then vomits, and just starts throwing up.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's taking off his jacket. You can see that he's sweaty, and it was fucking cold, and he's miserable. But he's out there. And then
was he hungover or what?
Oh, he's it was we did it upright.
Yeah.
Or wrong. Point of view. I probably vomited the night before, so I was okay. But he vomits a couple times. You kind of just see him sit there. And then all of a sudden he stands up and just drops trowel and takes a big steamer and just lets it go. I'm watching everything. I get all the details.
This guy's getting all the poison out of his body at that point in time.
It's like he's got food poisoning.
Both ends.
Yeah, and he's letting it go. And then he puts all his stuff back on, kind of looks around, and then finds a different spot by a log and lays down and just decides to go to sleep.
The hunt is over. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, what the fuck am I going to do now? I just climbed out and I let him be and then just went. I think I just started walking around.
Did your own thing.
Yeah, I was like, well, this spot's
a man in the woods at that point.
But that's when the 12-pointer would show up, probably, right? This guy's taking a dump.
Yep.
And
probably walked right over him.
Yeah.
Thought he was dead.
Yeah.
Started eating some IV or whatever it could find.
Yeah. That was probably at about 9:30 on a Sunday morning or something.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Man, while we're sitting here, coincidentally, my buddy Larry that I used to hunt with when we were younger, that I was saying, who got us the great Old Milwaukee beer sign to decorate the studio. Thank you again for that, Larry. Sends me a text. It seems to be a serious text in nature. Did you hear about the pedophile music teacher in Princeton?
But undone.
I live in this area.
Yeah, but undone.
Saying, hey, no.
Sounds like a joke, right?
No, I haven't. What the hell is going on?
You're safe.
He goes, yeah. I guess he broke a G string fingering A minor.
Hey-o!
That is a
good joke.
That is a dad joke. A bit of a
I don't know. That's more of an uncle joke.
Yeah, maybe that is an uncle joke.
It's not your own kid. You don't tell your own kids that.
What a coincidence. We're talking about the guy and he comes through with a tasteless joke. That's why I love you, Larry. Thanks again.
That is a good joke.
Keep him coming, buddy.
Yeah. Fingered a G string.
Yeah. Well, deer hunting is, a lot of men and women in Minnesota love it. It's got a lot of history, a lot of tradition. Everybody's got their own stories. I hope to get, maybe back into it a little bit next year. But like you said, maybe there's some muzzle loading that could go on.
Yeah.
Are you going to muzzle load up at the land?
Yeah, I might. I think I might. I might as well.
What would you bring up there? Just sleep in your truck, or do you bring the whole tent and everything again?
I'll just leave it there.
You will, huh?
Yeah, I'll dismantle it that week.
How long does it take you to set that thing up?
Well, in my backyard, it takes 45 minutes. Up there, for whatever reason, it takes a little longer.
2 hours or something?
Hour and a half. It's quicker to dismantle it.
And you sleep communally on cots in there, everybody in the same sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I got my buddy now with his family and his kids they have an ice castle that they park.
Okay, so they got their own little accommodations?
Yeah, this will be the first year that we've had a separated camp, in a way.
Segregated, in a sense.
I guess, yeah.
The ice castle sort of champagne-sipping deer hunters versus the...
Well, they live close to Edina.
Yeah.
We got a name for them, but I can't say it on the air.
I got some relatives who live there, too. They're cut from a different cloth in that city, aren't they?
Well, they live next to it, where we grew up. But
I got some that are right in the heart of it, baby.
Yeah. Anyway, deer hunting, deer camp. I'm looking forward to it. The tradition lives on. Hopefully, no injuries. Everybody stays safe. Everybody out there in Minnesota, every year you hear about some accident or something bad or somebody getting lost or whatever. But
yeah,
on a good note, it's an exciting time in the state of Minnesota. It's like the fishing opener, except on steroids for me.
Yeah, it's like the fishing opener with rifles.
Yeah, can't get any better.
Yeah,
and then I look forward to maybe some gonzo reporting from deer camp.
I think you should do that. I very much look forward to that.
Yeah.
I will hold down the fort here.
Well, you know what? I mean, you have an opportunity this weekend and maybe next weekend to where a lot of hunters' widows are going to be strolling into that bar, pulling tabs, and
very true,
lonely,
and
lonely,
yeah,
and
lonely.
and there's a guy right there waiting for him.
I bet it even starts tonight in a way.
I mean, who's the buck? Who's the buck with all the does walking around?
Yeah, that's me.
That's T-Bag.
Man, I don't know.
She wants
I'm
the
getting
T-Bag.
too old for this shit.
Yeah, it's a
You know
game,
what I
but
mean?
you're a predator.
You
got to step up this weekend. I want to see
the only thing I think of now, Bubs, is like we brought up earlier where I said I bought that one girlfriend of mine years ago a pair of yoga pants from Alabama. I think of the ones that got away from my own stupidity and, like arrogance at that time.
Oh, you sound like a country song.
I am. I'm a walking fucking country song now. Just drinking and reminiscing and mistakes made, opportunities missed, lines, blurred, friendships tested.
Oh, yeah. I go into the field prepared, right? I got a knife, I got, compass, obviously my rifle. You need to be in the field prepared with full force condoms.
Yeah, those would help. Like I said, though, I'm much more of a timid sort of observer these days. When I was a young man, that was a young man's game, Bubs. And let's put it this way. I excelled at it for many, many years. But every amazing, top level athlete and superstar out there, eventually you have to hang up the cleats.
Yeah, but they still do charity. They do charity work and they show up. Get out there.
We'll see.
Help that.
I don't know what I'll tell these ladies. Maybe you
don't tell them anything. They're going to tell you. You just be a good listener.
I've got a famous podcast.
You just tell them you just be a good listener. You just mold them.
I'll try, buddy.
All right.
I'm going to try.
I'm looking forward to your hunt. I'll tell you stories from my hunt.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. Well, to the audiences out there listening, thanks again for joining us today on the Bubs and T-Bag Show. If you're going hunting, enjoy yourself. Take some photos. Remember the stories and maybe drop a line on our X page on Twitter or X. We've got a pretty active account there. That's the one I would engage in most. Drop us a line with your deer hunting stories on X and have a good time out there. Drink a lot of beer and shoot a lot of deer. What do you got, Bubs?
Well, I'll be out in the field. I'll hopefully pull out some sort of report and looking forward to it. I'm extremely excited. I'll probably be at least 5 or 6 days up there.
Good for you, brother.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best of luck to you, to the clan.
You know what?
Yeah.
Good luck to you, because if one of us gets laid, we all get laid.
That's true. That is true.
We're counting on you.
Best of luck to you and the boys and Big Cat. And thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bubs is out.